We need to be self-aware here.
I'm very self-aware.
This is a self-aware segment.
It's a self-aware segment. These little seedlings of resolutions for other people have root in things I should also do. And in the spirit of that, I am going to tell the Green Bay Packers that their resolution should be to stop procrastinating, guys. Stop procrastinating against good teams, division teams, more specifically. Because if you watched the game against the Minnesota Vikings this last week,
Looked awfully familiar, didn't it?
Looked awfully familiar. More so that it was literally the same team that they struggled the same ways against, where they could not do anything in the first half, really couldn't do anything for about 3.5 quarters. And then the last 6 minutes, Jordan Love turns it on. The Green Bay offense turns it on, somehow manages to keep that game close. But you're left lacking because the Packers lost by 2 points.
Maybe
and you
just
have to think,
don't save it till the end.
Don't save it till the end. And if you look back at their last game against the Detroit Lions, they had 7 points in the first half. That's it. And then they end up losing by only a field goal. And you have to tell yourself, you have to look in the mirror and say, maybe I shouldn't leave all my scoring until the last minute against some really good teams, some really formidable opponents. And maybe they wouldn't be sitting in the third spot of the NFC North. Maybe this would be a little bit more interesting with the Packers and the Vikings, or I mean the Lions and the Vikings. But as it is, this was always going to be a tough division. So
I got a couple good stats for you that back this point up.
Okay.
In their 4 losses to Detroit and Minnesota, swept by both teams.
Yeah.
At halftime, the Packers trailed by a combined deficit of 75-20.
Yeah. Okay.
They were never closer than 10 at the break in any of those games. And on top of that, this isn't a problem that they've had against anybody else outside of the division. I went and looked this up. Across their 16 games, Green Bay is averaging 14 points in the first half. You zero in on their division games, even the Bears. They did this against Chicago as well.
They did do this against Chicago. That game was real close.
In division games, they've averaged 6 points in the first half.
Yeah.
It's rough, and it's different in every game. Some of that early in the season was missed field goals. They obviously corrected that issue.
Missed field goals. You had Jordan Love in and out of the lineup. You had kind of just some, in general, you had to settle into this offense a little bit more.
This second Lions game, the one in Detroit in early December, and now this second Vikings game.
Yeah.
This
same deal.
This is what the Packers are going to be. We're not rounding into form. We're not missing guys from the lineup. This is what the Packers are going to be in the playoffs, and it was still an issue. They took a quarter and a half to get started against Detroit.
Yep.
They took three quarters to get started against Minnesota.
Minnesota.
I like this advice a lot. They gotta find a way to avoid this when we get to playoff time.
Yes, and there's no reason that they can't, because like you mentioned, this is what they look like, and also they have a very complete team now. Jordan Love, again, Toyotathon Jordan Love, is doing his part, albeit late in games against division opponents.
Is it still Toyotathon? Is that going to go on into the playoffs?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's dropping off. But you do have the defense, and this is what I wanted to get to, because also in those earlier games, teams got out to a lead on the Packers because the defense wasn't bringing pressure, couldn't stop the bleeding, really was relying on those turnovers basically by Xavier McKinney and almost nobody else. But that's evolved now since their bye week. Green Bay going into that Minnesota game, leading the league in sacks, top 10 in pressure percentage. They have figured out their pressure issues up front so that they are forcing turnovers with the pressure. We saw that against Sam Darnold, where pressure got to him. He throws the ball. It's picked off. They're creating takeaways that way. It's a very complete unit now in Green Bay. This is not a team, I know everybody says this, but it's true. It's not a team anybody wants to see in the playoffs, despite the fact that they're third in their division. It's the toughest division in football. They're a scary team. They're a complete team, especially if they learn not to procrastinate.
Silver lining is the Packers don't have to worry about the Vikings or the Lions in the first round of the playoffs. But something to keep in mind as your playoff journey gets underway, Packers.